What's up, people? I want to introduce you guys to my channel. There's going to be a vast of topics that's going to be discussed here through time. Geopolitical issues, political commentary, sports, gaming, casual conversations with friends, and hopefully some followers of the channel. So this is my first video. Uh, being it being my first video, I wanted to talk about something that was of grave importance to me, and something that been lingering on my mind over the last 2 years, and even before that. Um, and talk about the issue Israel and Palestine. I'm going to start off with a clip from one of my favorite professors and lecturers, John Henry Clark. You see, I got him there on the wall. Brilliant man. I feel like he provided a certain narrative that's not in the mainstream ecosystem of Western politics. So I think it's a great place to start with him. So I'm gonna play those clips and add some commentary after.
And we cannot separate folklore from fact. Right. Too many times we swear by folklore, not knowing that it has nothing to do with facts. All right. Who exactly is a Jew? All right. There was no word called Jew in the ancient world. The word Jew did not come out of Africa. It did not come out of Western Asia. There was a fierce fight between the Arabs and the Christians. One group who did not want to belong to either one sought an option. And the option was the Hebrew faith. So what you are calling Jews are Europeans of the Hebrew faith. Many times they lived in communities of their choice. They did certain kinds of work that other Europeans did not want to do, and became so good at it, they dominated it. Portable wealth, gold, jewelry. And because they sold small things called jewelry, out of which came the word Jew. A European word that has nothing to do with their origin in Western Asia or Northern Africa, when they were just Western Asian people of the Hebrew faith. You find large numbers of people of the Hebrew faith in India. You find some in China, some in the South Sea Island. But the European tries to dominate everything he is a part of. My main point is that Zionism and the spread of colonialism walk side by side. In the mythological historical alliance people are speaking about never existed. And that the infiltration.
I think that's a very profound point he brought up, and it's something that happens all too often. The connotation with the Hebrew faith to a specific subset of followers of the Hebrew faith, speaking of Ashkenazi Jews. And I think it's just completely disingenuous to just connotate a whole system of faith with one subset group of people. And, people often talk about, a partition plan and Palestinians not taking a deal. But if you look at it, the partition plan in 1948, It's awfully similar to the Berlin Conference. I don't hear this point made at all. It's awfully similar to the Berlin Conference in the late 19th century of European nations, uh, a bunch of Western European nations and even America deciding, how they were going to split up and colonize Africa to the benefit of Europeans without a single African representative there or a single, missionary from Africa. So it's awfully too close because with the partition plan, you had six of the neighboring countries who who tried to veto it, but the UN Security Council overruled them. And I think in the time of the 21st century, I know the partition plan happened in the 20th century, but we shouldn't be living in a society where or just a global set standard where Europeans get to dictate the actions of other nations and other people. I don't think that's wholesome or fair by any means. And I'm not to put the dialect on this topic strictly being about race. But living in a Western ecosystem is like a obscene amount of tribalism, and I think we need to you know move against that if we're going to continue to go forward. I want to play some videos talking about what's going on in modern day with Gaza specifically. And I find it funny when people like to say the war in Gaza. A war is when you have two standing armies fighting against each other. What you have in Gaza is an occupier, just dropping death and destruction on indigenous people. They came in as refugees. Even before World War II, they were coming in and they were living, in that society. But a mass of them came as refugees towards the end of World War II, and what you had is refugees dominating and kicking people out their land and murdering and raping, mass pillaging. A form of domination, which is kind of what John Henrik Clarke was speaking about. But let's go into some of these clips.
The West cannot hide. They cannot claim ignorance. Nobody can say they didn't know.
Regarde, je vais te montrer son dos, tu vas rigoler. Regarde. Ils l'ont torturé. On va faire parler.
Lots of people say Israeli forces shouldn't be allowed to take cameras and phones into combat. I'm glad that they are allowed to, because it allows the world to witness what's happening.
And so what you're seeing there is just a bunch of atrocities that's happening current day. And I find it funny that people always like to refer to the Palestinians as terrorists. I don't know what's more terrorist than a colonial settler state going in and stealing land, kicking people out their homes, mass murdering them. People talk about the hostages with October 7th. First of all, it was thousands of Palestinians that was arrested without any trial or even what's the word I'm looking for? Without even any charges before October 7th, that was being tortured. You got examples of people getting anal feeding and all types of shit. It was just completely atrocious. And, people like to say, oh, well, there was peace before October 7th. That's completely not true. It hasn't been peace since 1948. You stole the Gaza and the West Bank in 1967. Let's look at some of the list of different operations. You got defensive shield, determined data, operations in 2004, operations in 2006, hot winter in 2008, 2014, protective edge, which had a 70% casualties of women and children. This is indefensible. I seen Alan Dershowitz in a debate with Mehdi Hassan try to say, oh, you can't name something atrocities like what happened on October 7th. Not that I'm trying to belittle, the tragedy that happened on October 7th, because I don't wish for the death of anybody. I believe in humanity. I believe we are all one people. But you cannot deny some of these different operations where you kill thousands and just killing people on a daily basis and locking people up for, unjust reasons and making people live as I don't even want to use second-class citizen because that's not even a word because they're not even citizens. You just got them living in an open internment camp. And I just think that's indefensible, and trying to defend it, it just shows your lack of humanity. When you seeing women and children being obliterated, torn limb by limb, like, how could you not feel any shame or, regret about that? I think that's an absolute fucking tragedy. Uh, yeah. Let's get into the next. And yeah, back to the term of terrorism. I don't know what's terror. Matter of fact, let's show what happened during the Nakba. Israeli soldiers, former soldiers, talking about what they did during the Nakba, and you tell me if this is not terrorism. And this is what's going on a daily basis, even till today.
ה3-4 חודשים הראשונים הייתי רוצח.
מה זה אומר?
אני לא לקחתי שבויים. בזמן קרב, אם מישהו הרים ידיים, משהו כזה, לא לקחתי שבויים. זה זעזע אותי עד כדי כך, לא יכלתי לעבור לסדר היום. אם היה עומדת כיתה של זה עם ידיים למעלה, אז באותו יום הייתי רואה אותי, הייתי קוצר את כולם, עד כדי כך.
כמה עד עכשיו אנשים הרגת ככה?
לא ספרתי. אני לא יכול לדעת בחיי. היה לי מקלע עם 250 כדורים. תראה, יריתי, נלחמתי כולם. אני לא יכול לספור. השתוללו בטנטורה, זה היה משהו נורא. טנטורה היה כפר עשיר, בתים יפים, גרים כמו אירופאים, אתה יודע, וגם אנשים היו לבושות ויפה, וזה באמת היה כפר... אחד אנס שם איזה ילדה בת 16, משהו כזה. אתה מבין? אבל זה מכוער מאוד, היה לנו בחור אחד, הוא נפטר, הוא היה פרא אדם, הוא לקח פשוט מאוד, ורצח אותם בתוך המכלאות. בתוך המכלאות, הם היו במכלאות, אתה יודע, חוטי ברזל כאלה, עגולים כאלה, אספו כל הגברים. הם יושבים שם, כולם, על הרצפה, ובא בישור, ולוקח תת מקלע, ומתחיל זה, מחליף מחסנית, מה אתה חושב זה? אבל אנחנו לא היינו כאלה. הוא היה יוצא דופן, הבחור הזה, כן, מה שהוא עשה. והשתיקו את הדבר הזה, והיו חבר'ה שלקחו את הלוויורים, ורדפו אחרי חבר'ה ושרפו אותם. זה היה משהו זוועתי, וזה אסור לספר, אני לא אדבר על זה, כי זה יכול להיות סקנדל שלם בעניין הזה. אני לא רוצה לדבר על זה, וזהו.
I would think, after committing some type of atrocities like that, I would have post-traumatic stress disorder or something like that. Not that I would ever do something like that, but if a person did, I would think, you would cry and feel shame about it, not, laugh about it and, take it like a joke. But, the lack of respect for human life and respect for other humans. Like, let's talk about when some of the different diaspora of the Jewish community went into Israel. When the Russian Orthodox community came in, they were accepted with open arms. But when you had the Falasha Ethiopians come to Israel, you put them in internment camps and then sterilized the women. Like, how is any of this stuff excusable? You can't have a society where it's just overt racism. Like, come on, bro. It's just disastrous. And then the fact, just the idea of the necessity for Israel to be a Jewish state, I think is for what? It's 2025. Why do we still need theocratic states? Right? People talk about the persecution of Jews. You're talking about the persecution of European Jews that was done by other Europeans, right? So why wasn't a land in Germany or Eastern Europe set to the side for Jews? Why do you need to go into another indigenous people land and kicked them out of it. You know, that never made sense to me. Um, yeah, but let's jump into this clip. Piers Morgan and Mehdi Hassan and Alan Dershowitz. Let's just jump into it. I'm gonna throw my feedback on.
Remember as well, too, you talk about that the Palestinians were never offered a state. The UN offered them a state in 1948, 1947, the Peer Commission, 1938. The Palestinians don't know how to take yes for an answer. And Bill Clinton put it very well.
Again, you dictating to people, native people of that land, Europeans dictating to them what they have to do with their land. A completely atrocious point, and that is not articulated enough in the ecosphere. So I just want to throw that out there.
He said Hamas, and he spoke really about the Palestinians, don't want a state. They want there not to be a Jewish state. Palestinianism.
Again, this is 2025. We don't need any theocratic states. It should be one secular government. If Israelis are going to live there, fine. I'm not advocating for kicking them out the land. They've been there for decades. They built their home. But allow the native people of that land to return home to their land and have equal rights, equal vote, the same way you do. It's the only right way to go. We don't need a theocratic state. We don't need religious states. It's 2025. And if you want to believe in whatever fairy tale you want to believe in, do it in your own time.
Focus on the Palestinians, as distinguished from focused on many other groups in the world that deserve statehood. The focus on Palestinianism is destruction. Bill Clinton says Hamas does not want a state. It just wants to kill Jews and kill Israelis. Now, how do we move forward from this? What we move forward from this is Hamas accepts the Israeli peace offer, which they have now rejected. Let's get the hostages back. Let's make peace. Let's have a process which could conceivably lead to a two-state solution. Look, I don't blame Netanyahu for saying you can't have a two-state solution now. You can't have a state where on its border you have Hamas running Gaza, where they've sworn to do October 7th again and again and again and again and again.
And he keeps talking about October 7th. Let's not forget, like, because this is just glossed over often, the fact that the Israeli government put in a Hannibal directive saying don't allow any Israeli citizens to be captured, to kill them first. You know, so you were killing some of your own civilians. So what's the excuse for that? And I don't understand how Israeli people aren't disgusted by that. Because I'd rather be captured as a hostage than to get murdered by my own government. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Can't have that kind of a.
And then we can also talk about, like, let's go over the history of things that IDF have done. Let's talk about the incursion into Lebanon in the 80s, where you have massacred vast villages with innocent women and children, literally massacred because you were chasing after the PLO. You scapegoat Hamas now, you scapegoated the PLO and Yasser Arafat before. You're gonna just keep scapegoating because you say Palestinians don't want Israel to exist as a Jewish state. But you're making it so Palestinians don't have a state. You want them in a Bantu state. And when you was offering them these different deals, they couldn't even control their own airspace. Like, what type of state is that? It's a Bantu state. It's a joke. Let's keep going.
State. So we all hope the goal is a two-state solution. The goal is to get rid of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, but the Palestinians have to come to the bargaining table legitimately, end the war, return the hostages, and then we can move forward.
Okay, before I let Mehdi respond to that, and he will, you know, my response to that would be, for the same reason that you can't let Hamas have power going forward because they are wedded to the destruction of Israel, in the same way, you could argue now, I think pretty clearly, that the Israeli government, the current one, is wedded to the total destruction of Gaza. And in fact, in Smotrich, out of his own mouth came a plan to cleanse the strip completely of Palestinians. So, there's not much difference here in terms of the intent or rhetoric, certainly from people like Smotrich.
I tell you what, if you got someone like Piers Morgan, who has a total Eurocentric view of the world, making this argument, your point is indefensible. If you got a guy like Piers Morgan making this argument, let's jump ahead.
Many Israelis have been killed by Israeli-friendly fire. Many, including a relative of mine who was killed by friendly fire. Accidents happen. Israelis immediately announced that they would investigate, and if warranted, it might have been a pure accident, but if warranted, there'll be prosecution. Israel prosecutes its own criminals, and it does it all the time. And of course, Hamas rewards them. The Palestinian Authority pays terrorists to kill, pay for slay. There's an enormous difference. The United States government had many cases of accidental killings during every war we fought. And the difference between a democracy and a tyranny is that in a democracy, you investigate. And you investigate.
Alan, before I go back to Mehdi, just...
He's talking about investigations. There's been cases where Israeli snipers have sniped children in the head and in the heart. Children. You have doctors from Canada, England, America, all come and report. They're not all making this up. And I haven't heard any investigations. What about the little girl who was killed in a car with her family, and her family was dead for days? And all the rescuers, the ambulance who tried to go help her, they killed the ambulance too. Come on, man. How many different mass graves have we found to people with their arms tied behind their back? Come on, you stop trying to make an excuse for the inexcusable. Stop trying to control the narrative. Get your house in fucking order.
Just on a profound level, I ask you this question. In what way is it remotely proportionate that Israel has now killed anything between 70 and 100,000 people on the Palestinian side, of which, let's say a quarter, maybe a third?
When the dust sets and clear, the numbers of this genocide is going to be in the hundreds of thousands, for sure.
Third are Hamas terrorists. We don't know. But let's say that is the proportion of that number that have been killed, which means maybe 60,000 civilians have been killed. In what way is that remotely proportionate to an attack that killed 1,200 people, of which I think 800 were civilians, and wounded many more, and kidnapped 250? It's so disproportionate now that what concerns me about this, if I'm an Israeli, a moderate Israeli, so not a far-right Israeli or an extremist or any of these things, I'm just an average Israeli citizen watching what my government is doing in Gaza now and seeing the fury that is building around the world to this daily slaughter. This is terrible for Israel. It's terrible for Israel's reputation. I think it's dangerous.
I agree.
It's dangerous for Jewish people. I think that the rising tide of anti-Semitism was despicable when it happened in the aftermath of October the 7th.
Let's jump ahead.
Israeli civilians, members of the public. You said moderate Israelis. You said earlier, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir don't represent Israelis. I wish that were true. I wish it was, but the Israelis...
Well, you're going to cite that poll with 80%, but
I'm going to cite multiple polls, right?
Well, that one is a bit of an outlier.
Well, the Penn State, there are multiple polls, Piers. I can cite you 3 or 4. My colleague Diana Budo has written about it for Zeteo. There is a Penn State poll that shows 82% of Israeli Jews say they support ethnic cleansing in Gaza. 47% of them said they support killing every man, woman and child in every city that's taken back from Gaza, a la the Bible punishments of the Old Testament. So Israeli society is super pro the war, super pro getting rid of Palestinians.
When what's his name? Yoel Galan said that we was going to cut off all warm water, food, and energy to Gaza, the human animals. You had Benjamin Netanyahu quoting Amulek, an Old Testament term, saying kill all women, children, and animals. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? What are we doing?
From Israel. So unfortunately, we can't lay all this at Netanyahu's door and just say, it's all the fault of Netanyahu. If we got rid of Netanyahu, things would be fine. Actually, the Israeli opposition is super genocidal. The Israeli parliament's trying to get rid of the only leading Palestinian member right now. The Israeli public is...
And what percentage of Hamas are supported by the Palestinian people?
Quite a lot right now, because they see the...
Here go Pez, where he's always fucking picking up water with his Eurocentric points. Sometimes he gives him a fucking... I'm glad that he allows for certain conversations and dialects, but you can tell he's being controlled by somebody. Maybe it's Mercer, because he's independent here, but he still is under Robert Mercer, and Mercer is a big donor to Israel. So
resisted.
Yeah.
I'm glad you
hang on.
Hold on.
So in other words, you see the same problem on the other side.
I do see some problem. Let me make this point.
That's
hold
interesting.
on, no, it's not, because you never let me finish a sentence. One
I'm
side is the occupier.
Responding to what you said.
One side is the occupier. The other side is occupied. One side is the people fighting for their freedom. One side is the people denying them the freedom.
The occupation.
But let me finish a point. It's very interesting that you mentioned about, different attitudes. All I've heard on this show since it began today is poor Israelis, think about the Israelis. Alan has said multiple times now, if your people were killed and if your women were raped, then you would respond like this. Well, the Palestinians would say the same because that's what's happened to them. Alan said, war is hell. If somebody came on the show, Piers, and said to you after October the 7th,
when did that
stop
happen?
interrupting, Alan. Let me speak.
There a 7-Eleven?
You've spoken the most on the show. Let me
when
speak.
was there a 7-Eleven?
Piers, 7-Eleven is the name of the store.
There was a 7-Eleven.
Piers, if
I can give you one worse than October 11th. Operation Protective Edge. There you go. 70% casualty rate, women and children. Thousands of people. Thousands.
somebody came on the show after October 7th and said to you, well, 1,500 people were killed in Israel, war is hell, would you be okay with that answer? You wouldn't be. So let's not tolerate it from supporters of Israel, please. Let's be consistent in our morality.
Okay.
Because that was a deliberate.
Okay.
So is your favourite man Netanyahu's killing of children.
I think the problem, Alan, with...
Yeah, I jumped around to a few points there. This is my first video, so I'm just trying to get the hang of this. You know, I hope you guys follow along through my journey and, you know, be a part of it. I want to build a community here. Not just talking about geopolitical issues, you know, American political issues and, you know, lighter things, sports, gaming, you know, casual things as well. Sometimes I might just have some buddies up here and just, you know, kick it on stream. Just want to do a couple different things. So, you know, I hope you guys follow along through my journey and just keep your eyes out for me. Have a good one.